Welcome back. With the Income Tax Department and the Enforcement Directorate bearing down on opposition parties, there's an outcry against the centre. Almost all opposition parties and many commentators are now claiming that the agencies have been set loose to deny a level playing field to NDA's rivals. Here are some remarks that have been made of recent. Rahul Gandhi says this is electoral match fixing underway to steal constitution from the poor. His sister Priyanka Gandhi Vadra says government financially strangulating the opposition and manipulating elections. Akhilesh Yadav, the Samajwadi Party chief, says agencies being deployed to raise donations for the BJP. Abhishek Banerjee, TMC MP and nephew of Mamata Banerjee, says EC conspicuously silent on BJP's unholy alliance with agencies. Atishi Marlena, Delhi minister, says inaction against NDA leaders exposes conspiracy against democracy. Viewers, how do we view these laments? The BJP is gunning for its rivals. It says this is a flimsy excuse, this business of denying a level playing field. Fearing tax inquiries, the opposition is complaining it's protesting too much. It's a common theme. Let's open this up. Let me first begin with Pavan Verma, an author, and GVL Narasimha Rao, Rajya Sabha MP from the Bharatiya Janata Party. Mr. Pavan Verma, it is remarkable that we are now talking about level playing field in politics. It's not as if vendetta, to quote the opposition, is some new comet that has been sighted in the, sorry to say, electoral skyscape. We have seen in the past in Tamil Nadu, in Punjab, the Akalis versus the Congress and the DMK versus the ADMK, and so many of these cases in Uttar Pradesh against the BSP's, Supremo, and against the Samajwadi Party Supremos. These are corruption cases. These are cases that needed to be filed because people were abusing their positions in power. And now when they're taking root and the courts are sort of going over the evidence and holding up the mirror to the accused, we're saying, oh, look at the timing, look at the fact that there is no level playing field anymore. Well, don't abuse your authority in office. Don't think that you're above law. The law will catch up. And sometimes it will catch up just before an election. What to do?
Thank you, Rahul. First of all, let me say it's not a level playing field for a reason which is entirely different from what you're talking about. It's not a level playing field because the opposition is no match for the BJP for this election. The BJP as a leader on a pan-Indian basis, the opposition does not. The BJP has a narrative, the opposition collectively does not. The BJP has one of the most well-honed organizations, the opposition does not. It has the BJP as grassroots connect, the opposition does not. And above all, the BJP is flush with funds, whereas the opposition has a very minuscule portion of it. So it's not a level playing field in the electoral sense. Now to your question. First of all, vendetta politics are not new. I concede that. But what is new is that a party that claims to be a party with a difference has taken it to a new degree. I say this not as an accusation but out of anguish, that today the central investigating agencies have been transparently and brazenly weaponized against the opposition. Actually, the facts speak for themselves. 95% of the cases initiated by the ED are against opposition leaders. There are 121 prominent leaders, political leaders, against whom investigations have been unleashed. Of them, 115 are from the opposition. And it is true that even after the elections have been announced, the ED continues with its coercive processes, which it does hamper the opposition. Now, you are right in making the case that if you have broken the law, why should you take cover of the elections? I agree with you, but it should be a level playing field for the same logic to apply to the BJP. For instance, in the BJP, as per their own declarations, the current cabinet, the cabinet of the central government, has 33 ministers with criminal cases, 24 of them with serious criminal cases, including that of cheating, robbery, attempt to murder and murder. There seems to be no investigation of that. Secondly, leaders in the opposition who have been targeted by the BJP, once they join the opposition, the BJP, suddenly seem to be processed clean, or cases against them slowed down. The proverbial washing machine is actually, frankly, working as a laundry factory. So, I think this is also becoming apparently more and more clear to the people. Now, I know what my good friend will say in response to this, that if that is the case, why don't they get relief from the courts? It's a valid point. Yes, of course, they should get relief from the courts. But now, here, Rahul, you are a journalist. We are all fair-minded people. Section 45 of the PMLA, which is a controversial one, has been so worded that it sets the basic principle of jurisprudence that has always been the fundamental structure of our legal infrastructure on its head. The jurisprudential principle is that you are innocent unless proven guilty. Section 45 reverses the presumption of innocence. It says that when the ED produces you before a court, even before the court has processed, even sometime before a charge sheet has been filed, the court will not grant you bail unless it believes there are reasonable grounds to believe that you are not guilty. Now, which court can do that in the face of whatever preliminary evidence that the ED has given? It's not been tested, it's not been tried, charge sheets have not been filed, the case has not been argued, the conviction is not there. And so there is a principle that bail is the rule, jail is the exception.
Let me remind you that the provisions in the law that are being referred to here by Mr. Verma, which reverses really the presumption of guilt, this existed in the Unlawful Activities Prevention Act 1967. So it's been on the statute books for long, and it has been extended to the PMLA. No one really had a problem with this then, but because politicians are in the clink today and they are being denied bail, suddenly we have, because obviously of their exalted positions, we have this massive cry for relief. Now, I'm not either in any way making any attributions that are unfounded. It's a fact. They are now lamenting the provisions. But G.V. Narasimha Rao, respond. There are 3 points that have been raised. Number 1 is the selectivity. Number 2 is the fact that the BJP doesn't look inwards. Look at the cabinet. There are people who have, 33 of them in the cabinet, out of which some 24 have serious cases. But they seem to have immunity, and when you pick out leaders from the opposition, bring them into your own ranks, they are sort of laundered in some ways to be squeaky white and clean. And then you have Section 45, which reverses the onus. Respond to all these 3 points, sir.
Yeah, Rahul.
Yes, sir.
Let me address all the 3 points that you mentioned and something else that Mr. Verma mentioned. He calls this weaponization of the agencies. If the agencies were to work as per the mandate of the statute, do you call that weaponization? No, this was actually, these agencies have been emasculated by the UPA government and by the non-BJP governments. They only created, they were part of the statute making of PMLA. In fact, this came into operation during the term of the UPA, though it was passed earlier. So it was okay. So the agencies did not do their job because the Congress was immersed in corruption, and therefore they found possibly money laundering as a very genuine kind of an activity. They wanted statute provisions only for the sake of fooling people, befooling people. But today, if the government has given a free hand to the agencies to act in accordance with the statute, in accordance with the provisions of the law, and the courts have found merit in these cases, Mr. Verma says courts did not give relief because the statute had provisions for such actions in such offences. So to call this weaponization is completely erroneous. This is actually empowerment of agencies. Earlier what you did was emasculation of these agencies and you used them. Possibly there was a hand, they were hand in work. They were hand in hand with the people involved in such acts, and possibly they had a part of the loot, and that's why they overlooked such charges. That's my allegation, counter allegation. Point number 2, there are cases against members of the Union Council of Ministers. I think you pick any Council of Ministers in the state or at the center, there are bound to be certain cases. Particularly, some of them, he said, they are criminal cases of different nature. This government and Honorable Prime Minister was committed to bringing in a law, or he actually requested the Honorable Courts, Supreme Court of India, to prioritize investigation into all cases, not just investigation and also complete trial, completion of a trial in 1 year, so that MPs and MLAs do not continue in their positions throughout the terms without having the benefit of the court's verdict. But unfortunately, the courts did not agree with that proposal. So would you blame the government or the Prime Minister for this? Obviously, we are not at fault. And no investigation has been suppressed in any of these cases. If it has indeed been done, be specific. Please tell me which case against which minister is not proceeding because of certain extraneous pressures. So generally saying there are cases against them, it does not really merit a very strong counter. Number 3, elections are on and enforcement agencies are doing their work. So is there an immunity period? Is there a dark period that Mr. Verma or the opposition suggests that all agencies of the government or any kind of a court trial should not happen for 6 months or 3 months before elections and during elections? Do you want such a immunity or such a provision? And if that is indeed so, please approach the courts. On many such issues, courts have given directions to the government. Even in making law, the Supreme Court has been very categorical in suggesting certain provisions. So if you indeed feel all corrupt should be left untouched during the elections and before and after, go and appeal to the courts. But this government will not create such a cushion period because the acts of corruption do not merit any such leniency. And third, selectivity. No, you be specific. If this government, we have been in power for 10 years now at the center, and the opposition has not been able to even make one allegation against this government.
No, there are allegations. I'll be specific. Mr. Himanta Biswa Sarma, Mr. Ashok Chavan.
Is corruption an issue in this election at all?
No, 1 second. Himanta Biswa Sarma, Mr. Chavan, there's a whole list of leaders who entered the BJP and, well, the cases are not going anywhere. They are sort of still. They've been stilled. Now, why have they been stilled? We don't know. They're certainly not progressing at the pace at which cases against opposition leaders progress. Let me put it that way. And there's a whole list, and it has appeared in the public domain in the media.
Rahul, shall I answer?
Yes, please.
See, all these agencies, you see, they are not constitutional bodies. Even if they were constitutional bodies, they would still be answerable to the courts. ED is an enforcement wing of the government. CBI has a lot of autonomy, but it is certainly, every agency is answerable to the courts. Do you think the courts would turn their heads away if anyone were to go and present substantial facts about any case? These are pure political allegations. You see, if any case has been dropped against anybody having similar charges, and if there is any evidence, why don't they approach the courts? What stops them from approaching the courts and say these cases have been dropped while our cases are being pursued? I think this is nothing but they want a level
quick
playing
response
field
on
for
this.
moral turpitude.
Mr. Verma, quick response to Mr. Jivel Rao on that point that he made.
Apart from being perplexed, I am really amused by Mr. Narasimha Rao saying that there is no selectivity. I mean, you yourself pointed out the degree of selectivity at the pace at which proceedings proceed when it is a BJP leader. I mean, out of 121 cases, 115 against the opposition, a rate of 95%. It can only lead to two conclusions. The BJP is an entirely non-corrupt party. Or it can lead to the other conclusion that the opposition is almost entirely corrupt. Now, it is not something that faces scrutiny. This is my point. You have people against whom the BJP has launched extensive campaigns for their corruption, accusing them of thousands of crores.
Okay.
I don't have to mention them. You mentioned him.
We know some of the names, Mr. Rao.
You mentioned
it's a good point.
There is the
Could you
case of
respond?
Praful Patel.
Yes.
The cases are there, and then the next thing we hear, the same agencies, mandated by the same provisions, have closed the case.
Okay, have closed the case.
As against Mr.
Rao,
Praful Patel.
Quick one.
No, as I mentioned, Rahul, if there are specific cases they want to contest, there is a method of doing this.
Okay.
If you feel that there is a particular case that has been dealt with leniently, while other cases are not dealt with leniently, why don't these arguments come up before the courts?
Okay.
Why don't you go before the people and even talk about this? We are a democracy. Have trust in the people.
Okay. Well,
but I see opposition using all these arguments as an alibi for losing elections.
Two erudite speakers, in a very considered way, are arguing this issue. And Crux doesn't allow me, at least I don't allow myself in this show to take a position at all. You've heard 2 points of view. Viewers, I leave it again for you to conclude. We've got to the crux of the matter from two opposite sides. Who's closest to it, I leave to your judgment.